So look, I don't really have my usual haha joke intro into my videos that I normally do because the situation still sucks if you've been keeping up with the news. And, I'm not going to tiptoe around it. What has been happening completely sucks. And unlike the upper management at Bungie who don't want to do their job, I do. And so I still plan to entertain or provide info with some shred of positivity while we wait till next week to find out what is actually going to happen with the game. So with that being said, let's stop with the dark doom and gloom and talk about something nice. So today I want to talk about the best, or at least the most consistent Banner of War build that we have in the game currently. Maybe it'll get even better next season, I don't know. But this build can be taken basically anywhere into the game and is very, very easy to use. Doesn't require a whole ton of skill ceiling or any hardcore mechanics like trying to juggle the navigator grapple to give you almost infinite melees. Nothing like that, but it's still incredibly powerful and super easy to use. Starting off with the subclass screen, so your aspects of course don't change. It's Banner of War and Into the Fray, that's pretty standard. For your abilities, you can pick whatever you'd like, except for the grenade. That will depend on the situation that you're in. Most of the time, you're going to want your grapple, just because you get an extra melee for Banner of War for extra damage. But, depending on the activity that you do, for example, Grandmasters, where there could be a ton of unstoppable champions, then you can opt to switch this for Shackle Grenades, because it's an instant stun on unstoppable champions, and then you can Banner of War melee them while they're suspended in the air, and they're dead, and you move on. For fragments, I have Thread of Continuity to extend the duration of my strand effects, Thread of Generation, deal damage to gain grenade energy, then Thread of Wisdom for defeating suspended targets to get an Orb of Power, which you do through your Shackle / your Super, and then Thread of Warding, picking up an Orb of Power, grants you Woven Mail. Now, moving on to weapons, all of these weapons in this build synergize with the one intent of you smacking enemies with your melee for massive damage, and we're going to start at the obvious one. In your heavy slot, you have Tractor Cannon, because you're going to debuff every enemy, like champions, bosses, etc., before you pepper them with damage, and you want that extra 30% debuff on them. That's the obvious one. Next, we're going to go with the energy slot, and in this slot, we're going to go with a glaive. Specifically, we're going to go with Judgment of Kelgaroth. Now, this weapon has a couple of good interactions with our build and what we're supposed to do. First off, glaives, when you use the melee function of them, count towards getting stacks of Banner of War, which makes you getting your X4 Banner of War for maximum healing very, very fast. Next, it also has close to melee, which means you can get one projectile kill with your glaive and then spam your melee, making it so you just mow through enemies, even orange bars, very quickly. Then in our third column, we have Pugilist. For any activity where you use your melees and you run out of juice and you don't have your super to replenish your melees back, you can use Pugilist to get projectile kills with your glaive and then get melee energy back through these kills. So let's say there's a bunch of acolytes on the field, you can just projectile kill them and then get your melees back via Pugilist. Also, I believe Judgment of Kelgaroth is the only current glaive that we can craft with Pugilist to use on our glaive, so that's also a bonus to run it. Our final weapon that we're going to be using is a weapon from the Crota's End raid, and that is the Swordbreaker Shotgun. Now, again, this has multiple functions just like our energy slot glaive. For this shotgun, you get 1-2 punch, which is a key factor into your Banner of War build to get your massive damage out. Because when you hit a target, with nearly every pellet of your shot, you increase your melee damage, which, well, it's going to go nuclear. Now, aside from 1-2 punch, it's also going to be able to roll Pugilist, which you can craft. We already talked about Pugilist on the glaive, same thing happens here. You can get kills with the shotgun on low-level enemies and replenish your melee energy very quickly through that. Now the third and arguably the most important reason to use this shotgun, it is a strand shotgun. The reason why this matters is because this season we have the artifact mod Monochromatic Maestro, which means every single time you're going to be shooting your shotty at, let's say, a champion and proccing your 1-2 punch, you're also going to be proccing Monochromatic Maestro, which means your ability damage automatically gets buffed when you land your shoddy shot because it's a strand weapon, buffing your strand ability. Also, while you're doing your combo with your melee, every time you hit your melee or your super and then your next shoddy shot comes out, your shoddy will also be getting bonus damage as well. This build was already strong prior to Monochromatic being fixed to work with strand, but now that it does, it just makes it comically even that much better. And then on the armor side, of course, the star of the show is going to be Syntheseps, combining with all these weapons perfectly. When you're surrounded, you gain increased melee and super damage. So you're just going to be pumping your Banner of War melees even higher through Syntheseps as long as there's 3 enemies around you. Which, given that this is a melee build, will be happening to you literally all of the time. Now, as for mods, nothing is really set in stone, but some recommendations that I would give you are the following. In your class item, you should run double outreach, just for extra energy regains. In your boots, you can opt to either run a full heal build, where you run things like recuperation, better already, etc., or you could even put on 3 strand surge mods to pump your shotgun even more if you would like. In your chest, whatever the resist is that helps you the most in your activity is what you should go with. In your gloves, heavy-handed is of course king, given that everything you're going to be doing is going to be a melee. And then in your helmet, you can opt with hands-on, or maybe just a heavy ammo finder in case you want to have extra tractor ammo if you're playing solo. Also, one more mod you might want to look out for, depending on your playstyle, is Impact Induction. When you do damage with your melee attacks, you reduce your grenade cooldown for your grapple or your shackle back. So, let's talk about the gameplay loop now. To start off, like I mentioned earlier, your ideal scenario here is going to be to proc close to melee on your glaive. So to start off, try to get a projectile kill with your glaive if possible on a red bar enemy. After that, you can start wailing on them with the glaive via the melee and start stacking Banner of War stacks up to X4 as fast as you can. The footage in the background you've probably already been seeing throughout the whole video is me soloing Ekthar with this build and doing just fine despite the literally unlimited amount of enemies coming at me. You'll notice that I try to proc my close to melee perk immediately, and once I do, I can just go to town even on the yellow bar knights in the encounter and have no problem shredding through them. And then once I get through them, I go through the ogre easy as knife through butter, and then I'll go into the whole symbol reading phase, but we're not here for that. Now, in the event that you're new and you don't know how the actual gameplay loop works for damaging, let's say, a boss, I'm going to break it down real quick for you. First off, if you're new, you're not going to be using Navigator, so completely ignore any Navigator shenanigans you may see on screen. Second, the first thing you're going to want to do on a boss is apply Tractor Cannon for your bonus damage through your debuff. Immediately after that, you switch to your shotgun, whatever that may be for your 1-2 punch. Mine is Swordbreaker, so I'm going to hit the boss. As soon as I do, you immediately go in for a double melee on whatever your melee button will be. So for me, it's F. The reason I say that is because, for whatever reason, you can get off 2 melees in the window for 1-2 punch, and they will still give you the full bonus damage of that 1-2 punch combo. Then afterwards, you hit him with the shotty one more time, and then get your third melee off. At this point, you have 2 choices. You can either Tractor Cannon and activate your grapple to get an extra melee in on the boss for your 1-2 punch, or you can Tractor and then go into your super. The reason for your super here is twofold. One, it's a super, so obviously it's going to do decent damage while you have Tractor on. And 2, using your super will replenish your 3 melees for Banner of War once your super ends. So as soon as it ends, you can then reapply Tractor one more time, switch back to your regular shotgun for 1-2 punch, and then reapply the exact same combo again of shoddy, melee, melee, shoddy, third melee, and then finally you can get a grapple in for an extra melee of bonus damage, and that should be a giant chunk overall. It's also worth noting that the damage may not look too spectacular on screen in something like a solo in Ghosts, because Samuma and Ekthar both have giant health pools, but let me show you an example of Banner of War versus Crota, where you just abuse the hell out of Crota simply with Banner of War melees, and he falls over, literally, in a matter of seconds. This should be perfect. Alright, perfect. Okay. So there you have it. Hopefully you were at least a little bit entertained or informed in this terrible time. That's the best way I can put it, really. That's it. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing today. Like or comment as well if you can. It does help the channel and is much appreciated and helps with the whole YouTube algorithm. Other than that, enjoy. I'll catch you next time.